life doesn't pull punches. Grief, growth, and everything in between, we're here to talk about it.
Welcome to Uncorked and Unspoken, where we dive into life's toughest conversations, real, raw, and unfiltered.
Every week, we'll grab a glass of wine or beer, and we'll dive deep into the stuff that's tough to say and important to hear.
From personal stories of resilience to finding strength in the mess, we keep it real because these conversations matter.
So pour yourself a drink, settle in, and let's talk about the things that aren't always easy to say, but need to be said.
Welcome to Uncorked and Unspoken. Let's get started.
Welcome to this episode of Uncorked and Unspoken, our third episode. Today's episode, we're doing the beginning of a series that we had decided to put together, and we're going to title the series Your Story, Finding Strength Through Unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're actually going to start with is really our stories. So It'll be kind of a two-part series. We'll do this week Katie's story.
Yes.
This is Katie.
Hello, everybody.
And then next week we'll do my story.
Yeah.
And we're going to just really venture, deeper, more into this idea that everyone has their own story. And a lot of people, I feel like, hide from their stories.
Yes. Yep.
So here we go, kind of diving in.
Take it away, me. So a little bit about me and my background before I kind of dive into the major life-changing event. As we spoke a little bit about in our first episode, John and I both touched on a really, life-changing event that each of us have had. And that doesn't mean there's only one, but these are the ones we've chosen to speak about. So I will be, you may hear some things that we've already said, but it's important to kind of go back and then bring it to the present. So for me, I grew up, I was born in New Hampshire, so I grew up there for a little while. Then we moved a bunch of different places. So we were in Connecticut, Massachusetts. We always seemed to venture back to New Hampshire until ending up in the town that we currently live in now. I grew up with my parents and my three brothers. We had a cat and a great golden retriever, and we had a great house. We were on 3 acres of land. It was really just a wonderful, wonderful childhood growing up. We, as a family, we did a lot together, and we went on road trips every summer. And, we usually, it was hours in the car, and my mom was awesome in providing fun little activities for us to do. And my brothers and I, we used to fight, but it was always very strategic. I was the older child. So
it's a typical New England weekend.
Yeah. Or, a New England summer of where are we going next? Niagara Falls, Cooperstown, Washington, D.C., camping up north, you name it. We were kind of out getting that, those experiences as young kids. And then, I got into high school and loved that experience. I loved being in high school. I had a really great friend group. I played sports. I played field hockey and lacrosse. I was in the band, the marching band, concert band. It was just, I couldn't have asked for a better high school experience. My friends loved coming over to my house, and my brothers loved spending time with my friends. And we really just, if you could have had the best high school experience, I'm a little biased, but I feel like that was mine. And then I decided to go to college. I played lacrosse in college, and that was kind of my driving factor to head there. And I would, I'd miss home just because I did love my family, and I loved my relationships with my brothers. And while it changes as you get older and you get in that teenage phase, especially with siblings, I still look forward to spending time with my family. And my brothers would do small little things when I would come home, and I had a Jetta, and I had a bunch of cow print things for my car. And so I would go to work. My mom said, just let them take the car. And I was like, oh, okay. So they picked me up, and my whole car is now outfitted in all of this cow print stuff, whether it was a car, the steering wheel or the seats. I had a little trash bag that was cow print. It was the whole 9 yards. So they were always really great. And then I would bring my college roommates home, and they always joked that we were like the Cleavers, because we would, everybody would stand out waving goodbye as we left to go back to Bridgewater. So it was always just a really great family experience. It didn't mean that we didn't, have our challenges and things, which I think every family does.
Right.
But it was a great family, and I loved my family. And And then in my junior year of college, which I touched a little bit on in the previous episode, I got a call on a Sunday evening. I was actually heading to church. I'm not a huge religious person, but I had attended church on our college campus because I really just enjoyed the Sunday mass there. So we were just already to leave, and I get a phone call from my dad, which, I don't want to repeat myself, but he had said there was an accident, and, sharing that my brothers had died in a car accident. And, that moment forward changed my life forever. It was definitely just a numb, I still don't think I have words to really truly express what that moment in life created for the next, we're going on, it will be 22 years this November 3rd. So I know I went home, and of course, everybody deals with grief differently. So, my family, we all dealt with it very differently. I think I wasn't sure how to really deal with it. And my friends were wonderful. Our family was wonderful. They were always around. But then the process of having to figure out a lot of things happened, or occurred, I should say. And so we had a viewing the night before the wake. And that was terrible, as I feel like viewing for a family member would be. They were open casket, which I was a little surprised, and I don't know how much detail we should really go into, but I think, having an open casket, you look at your loved one or your friend or whoever it is that you're there, and you kind of take notice of what they look like in that moment. And of course, the staff of the funeral home, they do their best to make them look as they had. And I looked at them, and they didn't look like they had been in a car accident. There was a minor, a bruise on one of my brother's hands, and one of my brother's hands was covered. But they looked like they always had. So it was very confusing to me, and very, not even hurtful. It was just this overwhelming of sadness, and even talking about it brings it back a little bit. And it's not that I don't talk about it all the time, but really focusing on that moment in particular.
Right. Like visualizing it again.
Yeah, and it's tough. I have a hard time even to this day having to go to an open casket wake, just because of that experience, and not wanting to leave them in that moment was unreal. I just was crying. My mom is really upset. There's little things I just remember, my dad just being there and quiet, and our family members just being like, it's time to go. And that kind of began our journey, essentially, for the next forever. That's really what it is. Our journey doesn't end.
Right.
And so we went through the wake and the funeral, and the wake was actually really interesting. My middle brother was really into sobs, and so he was part of a sob community, which was amazing. And he had talked with them and built relationships. He met a lot of people through that, some really good friends that we still keep in touch with today. And they all showed up, and there was so many sobs parked in the church parking lot. And they had two sobs just parked right in the front. It was just so perfect, knowing that they were there for Kylie and Tim, because Tim was a part of it as well. And everybody was there, and it was an all-day event, essentially, because there wasn't enough time. We had 2 wake times, and there were so many people, we just didn't get an opportunity to have a break. And there was just people after people, and just everybody being there. And my parents were so strong standing up there the whole time. And I feel bad looking back on it that I didn't stay up there as long as they did, because I just, being 20 years old in that moment, having my friends there, whether they were home friends, college friends, people I hadn't seen in a long time. I think it was my way of kind of disconnecting a little bit, because I didn't know how to feel, and I didn't know what grief was, I think, at that point. So the wake happened. We waited a really long time. At the end, we had really good family friends that lived in our same neighborhood, and their son was flying in. He wanted to be there for my brother's wake, so we waited, and they came, and he was able to say goodbye. And the next day we had the funeral in the same church, because there was just too many people to accommodate a smaller funeral home. I decided to get up and speak. I had nothing written down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm not even sure. I do not remember what I said. I remember what I wore,
Mm-hmm.
but I do not remember what I said. And I just looked around, and I kind of wonder to this day what people thought about my address to everybody, because I went up rogue. And it was just such a somber, sad, emotional moment that I'll never forget. So, at that point, the wake, the funeral, those things were all over. We went to the burial, where my grandparents or my grandfather was, and we were there. And again, all the Saab people pulled up in the cemetery and parked all their cars right there, and they all were there, and they did their thing. I don't really remember what it was, honestly. I remember being there, but that's about it. And then that essentially was the start of our journey, and learning how to cope, and learning what grief was and what it wasn't, and when people say stupid things and all the things in between,
Yeah.
It was the start of
that journey.
It was,
Yeah.
And it hasn't been an easy journey. So, I had family members there. My parents had people there, had to help support. People in the community did a whole food, I don't want to say food train because that's not the right word, but a food thing when they would drop off dishes of food made for us, because it just wasn't something that we could do. And then people would drop off a bunch of high schoolers, other people. There was so many flowers on our front porch that people would do as a memorial, and there was flowers there, and people were the community was really there, because they lost two members of their community as well.
Right.
My brother's being a junior and senior in high school at that point. That's a time in your life where you do have established friends, and you are a part of things.
Small town New Hampshire, right?
Yeah. Yep. And it really rocked a lot of people. And it continues to. I mean, my brother's friends, I think still to this day, they take the time to remember them on their birthdays and on the anniversary of the day they died, and which is super appreciative. And we, as a family, really want to make sure that people don't forget about them, because I think that's a big worry as the years go on, when you lose somebody, that they're going to be forgotten. And I know, you and I talk a lot about them, and I talk to them about them as not as if they're here, but I talk about their memories and the funny things they did, and especially being the only girl in the family, well, siblings, and them being so funny and playing jokes and poking and making me all frustrated or whatever, all those
just wiggling themselves underneath your skin.
Yeah, and they were really good at it. And looking back on it, they were so funny. And there are some of those what ifs that I do think about a lot, like what if I was a little nicer, and what if I played along, or I said thank you more, or I loved them more, or I hugged them more. Like, you do go through a lot of that, and that doesn't ever change. It just looks different as the years move on. So I went back to school after 2 weeks. I went back to college. I just felt like it was something I needed to do. Probably wasn't the right choice, but I did it anyway. And I would talk to my family, and I'd have conversations of struggles. And then my life kind of just moved forward at that point. I played lacrosse. My junior year was my best year for grades, and I decided on my major, which was going to be health education.
Okay, nice.
I only chose it because I got all A's in the classes that were health. So there you go. 20 years old, that's where you're at.
Decision-making process.
So life kind of went on the best it could. It was never easy. Holidays were super hard, and they continue to be difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all. That's never going to be an easy thing.
Talk about that a little bit. Like I think the obvious, we know what changes on the holidays, but like, what is that like? Like that first, because they passed away in November.
Right.
So you were right up on the holiday season.
So we were supposed to all, as a family and some extended family, spend Thanksgiving in Disney that year.
Yeah,
I know, it's pretty magical. And we canceled it for obvious reasons, because it's always been a place we've loved to go, and it was super important. We were really excited, and it wouldn't have been the right time to go. So we stayed back, and I honestly don't remember my first Thanksgiving and Christmas without my brothers.
Okay.
I'm even as we're talking about it, I'm trying to think what that looked like and how that I can tell you how I imagined it felt, but I've really, unfortunately, I don't want to say pushed away, or I just feel like time has gone on and I forget some of those feelings, which makes me a little sad because I do, not that I want to sit and live in the sadness and the hurt, but I don't. I know our family was there and everybody was amazing, but I don't necessarily remember the first couple's holidays without them. But what I do remember is not having them, that loss, that feeling of just deep sadness. And like, I don't even, like, it's hard to even describe, I think. And I'm sure other people who have felt this can kind of resonate with that a little, but you try your best to make it exactly what it was, but it will never be what it was when you were all family together.
Right.
Which is hard. That's super hard when you have your mom and dad, you have your brothers, and it's typical Christmas. Like my brothers would always come in my room on Christmas Day and we'd open stockings, so Santa would leave them on our bed so we wouldn't go downstairs before my parents were awake. So they would wake me up regardless of how old we were. Even that holiday before I was in college, but even during that time, they would wake me up and we'd all open our stockings together. And I still to this day miss that a lot. Yeah. It's something I really wish I still had, because I know that if we were all together, they would still do it. Right. Because it was just like such an amazing, awesome tradition. Yeah. But I mean, as time goes on, holidays, they look a little different, and sadness continues. It's not a light switch where after 3 years you're like, oh, I feel better now. Right. I think even to this day, like I was just talking about with the stockings, it's not easy. It's challenging, and it's sad, I think, and that's kind of part of the journey that you have to work through and live through, and that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with being sad and recognizing anything. It's just how you work through it and how you deal with it, and we've talked a little bit about that, that whole piece of that journey. But time had gone on, and we kind of did things. We went back to Disney for Thanksgiving, and it wasn't the best. Well, my family, in the moment, we didn't feel, I think it was a little overwhelming. There was a lot of people. I do still want to try and go back because it was so great looking back on it. But we did things. We continued to do things together as a family and still get together and do all our normal traditions. It just was different. And there were other times too, their birthdays. We celebrated each of my brother's birthday every year, and I like to still do that now. Even this past year, we were in Disney for Tim's birthday. We cheers to him in Epcot. Even if it's something small, just to remember them. I think that's a big takeaway for any family or anybody who's lost somebody, just to take a moment and remember those people that you loved and what that means. So life kind of just goes on at that point. Graduated from college, no clue what I was going to do. We went and took a couple of trips to visit my brother's sob friends down in West Virginia, which was the whole experience in itself. But we continued to do things. We created road race in my brother's name, and we did a sob car show in memory of them as well, to raise money for scholarships for our high school, and to give out a scholarship for business and automotive, and then culinary, because Tim was very much into the culinary arts, and Kyle was very much business, automotive minded. So for years we did that, and I think that brought a lot of joy and drive to continue to create those memories and to make their memory live on. And it was really nice being able to give the scholarships to the students. So that went on for a really, really long time.
Is there still like a soccer award in there now?
Oh, there is. Yes. Yeah. So my brothers were both really into soccer in the town that we're in. And every year during the memorial tournament, they do a sportsmanship award. And they ask my parents to come down every year during that time, and they give it out to a team. And my parents are there to hand that. Sometimes it's water bottles, sometimes.
Yeah, whatever the award trophy, plaque.
I'm glad you brought that one up. I forgot about that one. But yeah, so that's another part where I think my parents really appreciate it. And I appreciate it too, even though I may not attend that. It's really nice to have parts of Kyle and Tim still there and still with us. Because I think that's the scariest part, is feeling like you're going to forget what they looked like, or how they talked, or their actions, or their funny humor, that they were pros at, teasing people and all, obviously, and their best way. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of been, it kind of just goes on like that. I think I was really lost for a really, really long time.
Mm-hmm.
While I felt like I dealt with it, I don't think I really did. And it took a long time to get there. And my parents, they were newly bereaved. I think it was, I don't want to misspeak, but I think it was like not even 6 months after my brothers had passed, and they joined this group called the Compassionate Friends.
Okay.
And they were a small group. I think there was only maybe like 8 couples around there. I could be wrong, but and Compassionate Friends is a group for people who have lost children in a variety of ways, whether it's illness, accidents,
Sudden,
yeah, anything like that. And I think that really helped my parents get a community of other parents who are also going through the same things. And they stayed with them for a while. And I had hoped at one point there was a sibling group, and there really wasn't, which was okay at that time. I don't think I was 100% ready for it, even though I was curious. And then there was a Compassionate Friends conference in Boston, and I didn't really know much about it. And I was very hesitant to go because I'm not very religious, and I am not a big fan of when people push religion on me. And I felt very strongly in that moment that that's what the conference was going to happen. That's what it was going to be like. But I said, all right, I'll come for a day, and I'll come and stay with you guys, and we'll see how this goes. And to my surprise, and I still I don't even know the word. I'm just so grateful for these other siblings. There were multiple workshops each day or just sessions. And I had gone to one that was siblings working through parents and what that looks like for grief and siblings. Okay. Because it's very...
how to handle that new dynamic. Yeah.
And sitting in that room with all these people who have lost siblings. There was only one other person who had lost 2 siblings, and she had lost them at 2 different times, but still losing 2. And I've never felt more myself and more in the right place than I did in that moment. And it was the most amazing thing.
What about that do you think contributed to that? Like, what about being there made you feel more connected and yourself? Was it just the idea that you could let all the walls down?
Well, I think everybody knew exactly how you were feeling. Right. You didn't have to hide how you were feeling. Yep. I mean, like you said, the walls, they just came down. There wasn't any need for them because you could say what you wanted, and they were like, oh my God, yes, I'm struggling with my family for those same reasons, or I don't really want to talk about it, but my family wants me to. And it was just this group of people where you just could take a deep breath and be like, I get it. I get you. You get me. I don't have to try and explain it. I don't have to try and sugarcoat it. I don't have to try and hide it. I don't have to be like, so this happened, and try and bring humor to something that doesn't necessarily have humor. I came back from that, and I'd gone out with friends the next night, and I felt so uncomfortable. I just didn't feel like I belonged in that moment.
Yeah.
Then I was like, I just need to go home and kind of sit with that experience because it was so, so great. And I look to go back every year, and life just hasn't allowed me to go back. But I highly recommend that group of people. It's all across the United States. It's really, really wonderful, and they really support everyone, and the community is amazing. But yeah, we just, after that, I just kept doing my early 20s self, and was able to get into a job as a paraprofessional, and kind of did that. I wasn't really sure what my path was. I coached lacrosse through those years, and I think that was really hard for me to figure out what my purpose was, because I was still trying to figure out who I was now that I didn't have my brothers, and I went through such grief and trauma, essentially.
Right.
Especially not knowing what actually happened to my brothers. I think I had a lot of questions around that. I still do, because I still don't know. Right. I have speculations, and I've talked to some people, but I don't actually have the details, which I think would still help me not bring closure, but just bring a little bit more peace knowing exactly what occurred. But I went through that. I decided I wanted to be a teacher, so I went back and got my master's degree in special education, and was able to get a teaching job. And I kind of just continued my journey, again, not being super sure where I was at, but knew in my life I needed to move forward and keep plugging along and doing what I knew my brothers would have wanted me to do. And I kind of go back to that a lot. I feel like I've learned a lot from them, even though they haven't always been around, just because their energy and their desire for life and their humor and just how much they loved our family. I always want to take those strengths and make sure that I implement it into my life, because it's really important to me, and family is important to me, and it continues to be. And then I had the privilege of becoming a sister again. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't super thrilled initially about the experience. My parents told me they were going to adopt, and it's something they had always wanted to do, and they talked to my brothers about it. And so that was a different change. That was a little harder for me to kind of get behind that initially, because I was older and I didn't know how that was going to work. And I think I was deep down really scared of building a new relationship with somebody and not knowing what that was going to be like, especially as a sibling. But that quickly changed once she came home, and we have a wonderful relationship now. And then I got the opportunity again years later to have another sister join our family, and she's just as wonderful. And they both bring so much energy and light. I think that really has helped my family and helped me a lot. But I think you just keep plugging along, and it's never an easy journey, and it won't ever be easy. And we do our bonfires every year, or a little fire pit with family every year to remember my brothers on November 3rd. And that's kind of a time you sit and be like, wow, I can't believe it's been 22 years. Well, we'll be 22 years.
22 years this year.
Next month, yeah. I mean, that blows my mind, because I don't remember their voices all the time. And I can talk about the same stories, or I love when my cousin will be like, oh my God, like when Kyle and Tim and I did this. I was like, oh, I love hearing that. Or my brother's friends when they visit, sharing some stories. It's just those things I really look forward to, and I hope that those don't ever end, but it's not easy. And I think I'm always constantly working on myself. I don't think grief just doesn't like disappear. You're like, oh, I'm great now. And I am a different person because of it. And as we've talked before, like, I'm okay with the person that I've become, because I am a little bit more aware, and I try to be more open with my feelings, and I'm not great at it. And this is definitely pushes my comfort limits and makes me really reflect and think of what life is and the journey through it, because there has been a lot of ups and downs and struggles. I really struggled for a long time just finding people to care about me and that I wanted to love me, but I didn't know what that looked like, because I wasn't sure of myself and what I was looking for. I knew what I grew up with, and I had a great family, and they loved me, and they showed me that, but it was tough. It was really, really tough. I mean, it was, yeah. I mean, it's just a journey, and I don't ever want what happened to me to happen to somebody else. I mean, you can't plan those things. But I'm grateful for where I've come and where I continue to go. And I think it's been really great having the opportunity again to share about my brothers with you. I think it's been really fun to be like, oh my God, Kyle and Tim would have done this. I've done that.
It has been. Yeah. You've done a nice job. Like, I feel like I know them, and I've never.
Yeah. I mean, that must be interesting for you, like your thoughts on not knowing them. Yeah. But me having conversations about them, or just being like, Kyle and Tim used to put sticky notes all over my grandmother's house because she used to do that. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like, what you coming into that situation, that must have been really very interesting, or not necessarily interesting, but maybe like a unique situation.
Yeah. I mean,
did it not record anything? And I felt very strongly at that moment, especially my brothers. I have speculations.
Shit.
What happened?
It stopped 30-minute mark.
You have it on your phone, though, right?
I do. And just make sure that's still recording. I can just edit this thing. Can you start? All right, yeah, we're still recording here. All right. Sorry. Clearly, my hard drive filled up. I don't know how that's possible. What was your question?
What was it?
What was it like coming into that dynamic? It was a great question. You want to go up?
No, I'm good. Thank you. I'll open that window, too. Are you going to re-record it, or you just go off your phone?
We're just going to go off the phone.
Okay.
I'm just done with this.
We got to get to, I talked too long.
No, you're good. As you should.
No. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that it was incredible, actually, that you were so open, talking about your situation, talking about your brothers, and like I truthfully look forward to when you talk about them, because it's like, it just gives me a little bit more of like a piece of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was so impactful for you. Obviously your brother's in your life and then everything that happened after. So
Yeah.
I've been nothing but grateful, truthfully, to hear about that. And, you share your struggles and the things that you've gone through. So,
yeah, and I appreciate it because I think you've been really wonderful too in allowing me when I'm having a sad moment, because I still have sad moments. And I think a lot of people have those moments. Like I still get emotional when I think about it, whether it's, just a memory or what our life could have been like if they were here. I think about that a lot. In particular, I have always wanted a big family, and I was so hopeful that my brothers, they would have gotten married and had kids, and whether they lived close or not, we all could have come together. And that's a part that I still grieve, and I think I'll always
understand.
That doesn't go away. But you've been really thoughtful and kind in allowing me to have those moments and not making me feel that it isn't okay to still have that after so long.
No, I think
that's
you
so
should.
important to have that person to just say, and even if not, like allow yourself, even if it's just you, to allow yourself to have that, because that's okay. It's okay to, still grieve and to still get sad. Even when we got married, we talked about it, not having them there. I really would have loved to have had my brothers there, because I know they would have been in cahoots with you, or, and it would have been great, and they would have been there and they would have been excited. And, and that was only a month, not even a month and a half ago. So like that sadness is still very much with me, and it won't ever go away. I mean, there'll be times where I'm not sad and I'll talk about what they've done or just go on with life, but I will never not be sad and continue to grieve. I mean, that's never going to go away, and I'm okay with that not going away. I just have had to work through what grief looks like. And I think with maturity too, it's definitely transformed, but that sadness and missing them and wishing they were here will never go away. And that doesn't discount having my two amazing sisters, because that's been such an amazing part. And I'm so grateful to have that opportunity again, and to kind of carry out some of the things I think Kyle and Tim would have done as well with us as a family.
Yeah, I don't think that a gain necessarily replaces a loss.
Right. Yep.
So that's completely understandable.
Yeah. So it's been, I keep saying a journey, but I mean, it's really been quite the path in life. And I like that I can still work through it in really constructive ways, and that I'm not opposed to talking about it. And I'm not always going to want to talk about it. There'll be times where I'm like, nope, I'm okay. I just need to sit with it. Or I'm like, we might be watching something on TV and I get a little teary. That seems to happen quite often nowadays, but I don't know. I appreciate my journey. I don't appreciate losing my brothers, and I don't wish that on anybody of losing people. I mean, I lost a lot of people through the years, and it doesn't get any easier. But I don't know, it shapes you to an extent. But, it depends on, you kind of get to shape that for yourself too.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, it's just a process, I guess. And I'm okay with living in it. I'm not, like I said, I'm not okay that I lost my brothers, but I've come to a point in my life where I can kind of reflect back on everything and just see the journey that I've walked, essentially. And relationships I've lost friends, I've gained friends. I still have my friends from high school that are there every year when we do a bonfire, and they're, religiously there with us. And they do that, or they wish, they'll send me texts and say, happy birthday, Kyle, happy birthday, Tim. And my extended family is the same way. I even if I'm like, oh my gosh, it's April 4th or August 24th, I instantly get a text from my cousin or from my friends. And it's something so simple like that just means so much. And I think that's another piece. Don't ever be afraid to talk about people who have passed or your loved one, because I think people are afraid of it. And I do think that makes us nervous to bring it up too, because then it's like, oh, we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, but we want people to remember and we want people to recognize.
How often did you run into that where people didn't want to ask you about it, or you felt like there was like an uncomfortable tension? I think back to, and I think you've seen it, the Call to Courage with Brene Brown. And she talks about that whole process. And I just wonder what that was like from your perspective, as far as like, did you want to talk about it and people just avoided it because they felt uncomfortable by it, which made you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think initially I was really uncomfortable because I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to approach it with people. I didn't know what to say. And in return, people didn't know what to say. They're like, sorry for your loss. And you're like, and that's fine. And I think if that's all you can say, that's amazing. And I think people who've lost people appreciate that, even if it's a little bit. But you do run into people and like losing friends, and then, having your friends always there. I don't think anybody really knows what to say. Even now, when people lose people and I have to write something in a card, I don't always know what to say either, because death is hard and grief is hard and everybody deals with it different. And it's, you can say sorry for your loss, or I'm thinking of you. If you need anything, give me a call. That's a big one that we always said in my family. Don't write that, because they're not going to give you a call. No. You need to call them, and you need to reach out to them, because they're in that mode of grief and sadness, and they don't have that capability. So I think it's like a mix of things. Even when you and I were talking when we met, that sibling question always gets me. Even to this day, I was worried I was going to get the question today, actually, at work, when we were talking about family. But even that, you were so great. Like, I love family. And you were so interested in knowing more about it. You didn't make me feel uncomfortable, because it is still uncomfortable to this day to be like, well, I had two brothers die in a car accident. It is. And you don't want to put that on people. I never want to put that on people, but I also don't want to hide the fact that I had two brothers that did die, and unfortunately in a really terrible way. But it's just, it's tough. It's tough to be that person in that position of being like, wow, guess what? I lost these people, but don't worry, you don't have to act uncomfortable about it as I'm acting uncomfortable about it. It's just a weird dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's really I think it's unfortunate. I think that you carry that weight. And some people don't know how to, I guess, react, if that makes sense. Some people, get really uncomfortable, or they don't know what to say, or they become super vested and ask probably a million probing questions.
Or it's total opposite, where you never see them again.
Right. But yeah, I guess my only advice is the outsider there is like, just, I felt for you in that moment, but I was also really impressed, because like, you were just so forward with it. You didn't make it uncomfortable.
I try not to.
You were just like, I think I remember like maybe a slight chuckle from you. We were hiking at the time.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I think there was a slight like nervous, maybe like
exactly what it is.
A nervous chuckle. And then you told me, and I just remember just feeling for you in the moment. But, and truthfully, we talked about this, like, also at that point, like, incredibly, I was just like, wow, like, this is someone who's really had this terrible thing happen to her, and she's still her today, which I think is, I'm always interested in that journey of like, how that, how you still become the person that you are despite that great loss.
I mean, it's a journey, and you have to decide which path you're going to take. You could take the wrong path, a middle path, or the right path, and it's all up to what you decide. Did I always take the right path? No. But did I try and avoid grief and sadness and have no idea who I was? Absolutely. Then I took another path where I was like, I think this is where I want to go. But then I looked for the wrong things. I looked for the right people or the right experiences. And then I was older, and I was, oh wait, like I can be confident. I can share my grief. I can talk about it. Whether it makes people uncomfortable or not, I'm still going to do it. But I think owning yourself and owning that experience, there's nothing wrong with it. And especially, and everybody's different. I'm not going to say, oh, somebody who's died, just shout it out. No, I'm not like everybody. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. But like, if you meet people and you want to share that, or like when I get that, oh, do you have any siblings, or how many siblings do you have? It's okay to say it, and it's okay to own it and be like, yep, I went through this.
My story.
It is it's my story, and I'm okay to tell it, and I want to tell it to people. And I can recognize when maybe somebody doesn't necessarily, may not be the right person to tell. But I think that path, you get to create that and what that looks like. And it's not easy. It is really not easy. There's anxiety, there's depression. I never had, anxiety to the extent that I do now. But after my brothers, I definitely have it. I have the worry when I don't hear from people I care about, if they got to a certain place safe. That still is a huge issue for me. I hear a siren when the windows are open. I get worried that it's somebody that I know. Those things won't go away. I can deal with it differently, and I had to work through that. I used to really panic when I was younger about not hearing from my family or whoever it was. But again, that's like what you choose and how you work on yourself. And I'm not perfect, and I continue to work on myself. But I think it's all about, your decision and what you decide you want it to be.
Did you have like I'm always curious in this, did you have like a moment? Was it a singular moment where you pivoted? Right? Because I imagine, and if you want to dive in, you can, but I imagine there's immense grief, there's immense emotions. Was there like a singular moment where you were like, I guess I'm just going to take this and I'm going to just keep going and become the person? Or was it like a series of small moments? Like, what was that like?
I think it was just a progression of life. I don't necessarily, I maybe had some aha moments here and there.
Yeah.
But
realization.
Yeah. And I think that's what it was. But I think that also comes with maturity and, the path of life and experiences and all those things in between. I think that was really part of my journey. But I don't think there was a particular moment. I've had experiences that have made me feel better.
Yeah.
Whether it was running or Spartans or hiking. Hiking's a huge one for me. When I feel sadness or frustration or whatever those uncomfortable feelings are, that I know we've talked about it and I don't want to, continue to talk about all of that, but that for me is like therapy on a mountain.
Yeah.
I just think recognizing that I'm here and I get to, and I'm still moving forward in life, that is a huge part of why I continue to do what I do when it's hiking. And I think that's kind of where I work on myself. But I've had life events and I've lost other people, and you just kind of decide to move forward or you don't. And it's okay, to have some speed bumps and go backwards and forwards. But my life has just been an adventure, and not necessarily a positive adventure all the time, but it has been an adventure and a journey. And
what were some of those realizations that you had along the way? Like, what were some of those lessons in the moment? Do you have one that sticks out to you? Like,
oh gosh,
I know.
It's a good question. Something that sticks out to me. I don't know. I feel like that's really hard. That's something that I really have to sit and think on, honestly, just because I've had so many different moments and they don't always all tie to my grief, but it kind of helps me along the way.
Okay.
I think with doing something new, changing a job, meeting new people, meeting you and our journey and what that looked like, and continues to move forward. And I think there's all different parts of my life that have kind of created who I am, and me moving forward and learning more about me and about my situation with my brothers and, the grief piece and the life in general piece. I think so many small moments make up a bigger picture. It's hard to name just one. I'm sure we'll be done talking. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I had one. But I think now in talking and thinking, it's just a progression of small moments and bigger moments that has kind of just made me be okay with where I'm at and continue to grow. And I think that's for me. I never want to stop growing and moving forward. That's been always my points of, a hard, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to give up. And there's times where I wanted to give up and be like, that's it. Like, I am over this.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think my brothers would never want me to do that. And so I kind of keep that in mind. It's about Kyleton and what that looks like and what they would want me to do and how much they loved living life and their relationship. They had such a good brother relationship that people thought they were best friends more than brothers, which I love. And so I always remind myself of that too. So it's been a hell of a journey. And it's not over and won't ever be over.
No.
Even when, it'll be 40 years from them passing, it's still going to be sad.
Yeah.
Like even talking about it now brings up a lot, as it should, talking more in depth about things.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I think that was hard for me to realize that it was okay to be sad, even though it's been a long time.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone that's coping or going through grief, either newly or, a few years in? I'm sure it looks different, but what would be that advice to that person?
I think to let yourself grieve. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to miss the people you've lost and miss the person that you were before those people passed, because I am a different person after my brothers passed. And allow yourself that time. And grief isn't a number. You don't just 6 months. Okay, I'm done grieving. A year, you're done grieving. It could be 2 years. It could be 3 years. People consider newly bereaved for 2 or 3 years. So just give yourself grace and allow yourself to work through it however you need to. And I'm not saying like in negative ways.
Right.
Reach out to those people. Sit with the people that care about you. And even if you don't talk about it, be with your people and rely on people's support. That was hard for me.
Yeah.
And continues to be hard for me, but allow that. I think just allow yourself that time, and you get to decide what your next step is and how you decide you want to remember those people. I mean, my family, we decided to do the different scholarship funds and road races and
build their legacy.
We did, yeah. And I think even though we don't do that anymore, it's about remembering how we want to. We tell funny jokes and tell stories about them. And don't be afraid to talk about your person, your loved one, or your friend, or anybody close to you that has passed. Talk about them. I think that's even more important because you want to remember them and you want other people to remember them as well, even if you don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
You want that. So it's a bit of a mishmash of things, but
be okay with it. Sounds like, yeah.
Well, you're never going to be okay with it.
Be okay with wanting to always talk. Be okay with wanting to talk about them and
be uncomfortable. Be comfortable with the uncomfortable, essentially, because grief is very uncomfortable. But that's just will become your new norm, and that's okay. And decide who you want to be and what that looks like for you moving forward.
Yeah,
I mean, you're always learning and always growing.
Always.
Yeah. So the long and short of my story.
Well, it's an incredible story. Like I said, I'm still consistently impressed with who you are and who you've become.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Despite life's challenges. So I think it's important for people to hear it and, better understand.
And know they're not alone, too.
Right.
Because that's a huge piece. Sometimes you do think you're alone in your grief, and you're not. Even if people don't say it out loud, they could, too, be going through something. That for people, that grief is there.
Yeah. Yeah, that don't get set in that feeling of isolation.
Right. Yeah, you definitely don't. You want to, but don't, because it's not helpful. Even if you don't feel like it's that in the moment, in the long run, it's not. Be a part, even if you're just sitting with your family or your friends or your coworkers or whatever that looks like, it's really important.
That's incredible. It's an incredible story. It's unfortunate. And, despite all the things that have happened to you, you've still come out to be pretty incredible.
I appreciate it.
I think that's the angle, So.
Yeah.
All right. Should we pivot to...
Yes, let's pivot to
the beer?
Yeah, we're super excited about this tonight.
This week's beer, I am super excited to introduce.
You should be. You got to experience a really amazing thing the other day.
So a part of what we want to do, as much as share our stories and then, as we build an audience, your stories as well.
Yeah.
We really kind of want to feature and showcase our love for wine and craft beer.
Mm-hmm.
So we're from Southern New Hampshire area.
Yep.
We've got a local restaurant, that we frequent quite a bit.
We do.
Maybe so much I think we're afraid of getting recognized there.
I know.
As regulars. But the place is great. It's Brickhouse Restaurant and Brewery in Milford, New Hampshire. We're on the Oval.
Great deck in the summertime and early fall.
It's incredible, isn't it?
I love that spot.
Yes. So we've been frequently, if they went through a rebranding or a business change back in May, we followed that transition.
Yeah.
And I feel like as soon as May and the summer hit, I would say at least a couple times a month, we are frequenting there.
Mozzarella sticks and beer.
Mozzarella sticks, beer. They have these great fried raviolis that I'm absolutely obsessed with. So, what we did is we reached out to them and we said, hey, you have this great beer that we have absolutely grown to love.
That's so good.
And, I said, would it be okay if we featured it on the show? So I went and met Perry being the owner of Brickhouse. And he was great. He brought me out back. He showed me where they brew the beer, the ingredients. I'm not giving away any trade secrets here.
I probably appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah. But I can tell you what the notes are in it. And he was super open. He just kind of just explained the whole process of taking over this business and brewing great beer, and their head brewer, Bruce, and both of their journeys to, making the Brickhouse the establishment that we absolutely love. They do like live music there. They're super family friendly.
Yeah, that's what I said.
They're a staple for us.
They are.
So without further ado, this week's beer, and I'll throw a picture on the website as usual, is the OMG Pumpkin Ale.
And it's truly exactly what its name is.
It is so fabulous. If you like a good fall pumpkin beer, this might be...
I think this might be one of
the best ones I've had.
I agree.
I'll give you an idea, or I'll read off the back here. So dive into sweater weather with the OMG Pumpkin Ale, the perfect sidekick for leaf peeping, quarterback sneaking, and non-spooky treating. Brewed with real pumpkin in the mash, and infused with a blend of pumpkin spice and vanilla. So those were, some of the big key ingredients. There's also brown sugar notes as well. So it's a sweeter beer.
But not too sweet.
No,
it's not enjoyable. It's so good. It's just, I think if you were to reach out of all the fall pumpkin-y beers, I would reach for this one.
Yes, time after time.
I mean, I'm a big Shipyard fan and Jacko fan, but this 100% takes the cake, takes the pumpkin.
So we'll pour it here. It's not a great pour. But
even the color.
Yeah, deep amber color. So some of the notes that Perry had talked about with this beer, the vanilla, the brown sugar, the mashed pumpkin, and they're very particular about it. Even hearing the processes, and I didn't realize this, but part of the brewing process is you can actually sample the beer before it's carbonated.
Oh,
so
I know that.
It lacks a little something, but and they're tasting and they're like, add more vanilla. And Perry did a nice job. And he was like, as soon as it hit that perfect bounce, he's like, that's it. Don't change anything. And it's really a process. I mean, we have a passion one day of brewing beer, but we don't do it right now, just to see that process and the art that went into.
I know. I'm so envious that you were able to go and meet everybody and get to see that, because we've always been curious every time we go in, and especially after having this beer.
Even the artwork. The artwork is, and again, we'll throw a picture on the website, but the artwork it's clever. It's very pumpkin-y, Halloween-y, right? So yeah, this is a great beer. I feel like the last couple times we blind tested.
We have.
This is not a blind test for us.
We are so excited to be able to feature it because we do enjoy it so much.
This is an exciting test for us. So yeah, if you go there, I mean, we both don't eat a lot of meat. I don't eat a lot of meat. Right. Katie doesn't eat any meat. So I couldn't tell you how the burger is, but I can tell you that their appetizers are
Even their pizza is fabulous.
Pizza's fabulous. Calzones.
Chicken.
Yeah, the buffalo chicken is great. They've got a buffalo chicken wrap that's exceptional as well. So, again, 10 out of 10 would totally suggest.
Yeah, give it a try.
Go to Brickhouse.
Get an OMG pumpkin ale. You won't be disappointed.
You will not be disappointed. All right, folks. Well, that wraps up the third episode of Uncorked and Unspoken. I do want to take a minute and just talk about some exciting things that I think we've done over the last week. So our website is completely stood up, uncorkedunspoken.com. If you go on there, you'll find our taste list, a link to register to be a guest. There's no requirements to be a guest. There's a form that I need you to fill out that just kind of tells us who you are.
But please feel free. We would love to have some more guests.
Yeah, and you can call in. We have the software to do that. You can come visit us. You can share a beer with us. We're definitely looking to expand that way. And then, on there as well, we've got all our social media links. So we are pretty much everywhere right now. I think we've
done a nice job.
Facebook, Instagram, X,
Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
TikTok, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Spotify.
All the things.
We're everywhere. So now we're just going to build the audience. So if you are listening to this, please go ahead and hit that subscribe or like button. Therefore, we can slowly start building the audience. If you have feedback for us, there's also a contact us on the website as well.
Feedback?
Yeah. We'll take any feedback. If you're like, you guys are just not great at this, tell us we're not great at this so we can just figure out how to be better at this.
Yeah.
I won't take it personally. 'Cause truthfully, we just get to like set this up, drink beer, and have great conversations with each other.
Which
So
we love to do anyway.
yeah, so business as usual.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of exciting things happening. Please, go check it out. Give us your feedback and let us know. But look forward to chatting with you next week.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great night.